Hey everybody, it's Lily, and welcome back to another Soulful Journey. So we are on day 9 of the Soulful Journey. And so for those of you who are not sure what the Soulful Journey is and what it is that I'm talking about, is that I have in the last 9 days been coming on and sharing a topic a day, and going through some different tasks or ideas or actionable steps of us being able to take some transformation to our lives. So somewhere around 4 p.m. Eastern time, I've been jumping on. So sometimes a little early, sometimes a little late, but I've been trying to come in around 4. But today and tomorrow, both times, I'm going to be jumping in early because we have some family things that are going on. So I am going to be jumping in early. And the last couple of days, I had some family things that were going on, so it meant I was a little later. So, but I don't want to do later tonight. I want to be able to be on earlier today and tomorrow. And so today's topic is the role of fear. So one of the things that we're going to be looking at in talking about is what role does fear play in our lives, and how we can actually confront it and learn how to use it as a guide. And so those are going to be the ways of being able to do things. So we're all afraid of things. And so and there's going to be some fears that we just may or may not overcome because we choose not to. But all things that we are afraid of, we can overcome. We can find ways of being able to confront those fears and be able to take things to the next step. And so I'm going to talk about some examples. I'm going to go through some examples and some scenarios and they're going to be things that are like bigger. And so what I want you to do is like examine them from that perspective of something smaller. And hey, Janice, perfect timing for you to be live today. Yay! Awesome. And so one of the things, so when we're talking about fear, one of the things is, and one of the examples is public speaking. So when we are looking at public speaking is one of those things that 99% of us, probably 99.9% of us are public speaking isn't the thing that we like to do. We get nervous with it. And so even with me jumping on a live, that is something that has taken some courage, taken some practice, and some really just kind of jumping in and just doing them, and trying not to worry about how other people are going to perceive it, think it. Am I going to stumble on my words? And for a really long time, stumbling on my words was like, oh my gosh, I would go back and delete the videos and go back and start again and that kind of thing. And so one of the things that I talked about at the beginning of this journey is just being able to just be authentic. So if you and I ran into each other on the street and we were having a conversation, there's no control alt delete kind of conversations that we're having. We're having the conversations, and if I spit and sputter on my words, then that's just the way that it is. And yet we don't stress about that when we run into somebody on the street and we're having a conversation, or we'll run into each other at the grocery store or whatever. But yet we have this huge fear of like, what are people going to think if I'm on a live or having this conversation, or not being able to do whatever it is that we need to be doing. And so it's just a matter of doing something consistently. So whether it is public speaking, whether it is having jumping on a live, doing what it is that I'm doing, or one of the things that is just even, I have people that are like, oh, well, I can't jump on a Zoom call. And I'm using that as an example because that's one of the things that will sometimes hold people back from taking programs or doing things, because like they don't want to be seen on camera, or they don't want to be heard on camera, or like all these different things. And so it's just a matter of like making that decision of doing whatever it is that you have been fearful of, and just taking that next step, and just taking that and doing it, and then doing it consistently. So not doing it just one and done kind of thing, continuously doing it. It's not the same as when we were in school and they made us do public speaking. And you had some people at least I know that I did growing up, that I had some people who would like just jump in front of the classroom and would not have an issue at all with public speaking at all. And so, whereas most of us really struggle with that and stumble on our words, and back then they would make us memorize our speeches, and that was one of the points of whatever it was. And if we couldn't remember it, then we would lose points or whatever. And coming from somebody who was a perfectionist, that was one of the things that was really difficult, is because if I missed a word, well, then I would then start going in my head and trying to figure out what that word was, or I would lose my spot, and I wouldn't be able to like just kind of recover. And so it's just about being able to just take that step, jump in full bore and just go with it. Another one of those things that we are often afraid of, and that I hear others, and for me, it's a little easier because I had a lot of contract positions. So I often had lots of changes in terms of like starting a new position, starting a new job. And for a little while, people would say, like, how many jobs do you have? Because at one point I had many part-time jobs doing different contract work. So I was doing lots of different things. And then I would also volunteer in the community. So I had lots of different things that were going on. So for me, that became easier. I was able to like transfer from one thing to the next and kind of go off and do something new. And that was not usually a problem for me, but it was initially. And so that career transition is something that sometimes we get stuck in, like, I'm in this job, I don't want to be in this job anymore, I don't want to be in this career anymore. And it really would just like to be able to just kind of get out of it and move on to something different. And we get stuck on that. And so again, it's that whole thing of just being able to have the courage of being able to take that next step and take that next step of doing something different, so that you can actually have the dream job that you want, or being able to so we have a one of the ladies in our group who has started school, and so she's gone to college as an adult in her 20s, and so she's starting something completely different and completely new, with the goal of being able to move on to bigger and better things. So she's starting off with college with the plans and the intentions of going off to university. So it is incredible to be able to see that courage, because it really is courageous. It really is, because it's so easy for us to be able to just stay in the everyday and the mundaneness of everything that we're doing. Another one, in terms of being able to face those fears, is facing health challenges. And so I know a number of people who have been diagnosed with some very serious, severe, terminal, sometimes terminal, not always terminal, but health concerns. And one of the things that they did is that they didn't stay stuck in the everydayness of, okay, well, I guess they told me that I'm going to die, so then I'm just going to kind of sit back and just let everything happen. They actually took control over the things that they're doing. Some people ended up in remission. Some people still have the illness, and it will continue to progress, but they are doing everything they can to continue to live their life to the absolute fullest. But it is really difficult to be able to make those lifestyle changes, to be able to have a better health and have a better way of being able to navigate our own health. And because first of all, it's scary when we have something going on with our health, and then we throw in, okay, well, we're going to change the way that we're doing things so that we can actually have a better life, and then that causes a whole other part of our feelings and the things that are going on. So that's another place where we actually see people overcome their fear. Another one is being able to go on an adventurous expedition. So those like, oh, I'm going to go and climb Mount Everest, or I'm going to go and I'm going to go do skydiving, because that's something that's been on my bucket list, not mine, but could be somebody's, not mine. But like these really huge adventurous things that we actually just kind of jump in full bore and be able to go. And it could be something like even just there's a friend of mine who actually did a 10-kilometer run, and so like that competition run, and so like that was one of the things that she did, and that was that adventurous expedition. So for some people would say, oh yeah, well, that's not really a big deal, but when like you go from couch to 10K, like that's huge. And so just being able to go through these triumphs and trying to and literally climbing those mountains so that we can actually have that that courage to be able to take that next step and that determination. So really, really important for us to be able to do that. Another one is overcoming social anxiety. And so, as you know, anxiety is something that I work with people a lot. And so, so that is one of the things that most of the people that I work with have anxiety. I have anxiety. And so being able to overcome some of those challenges of being able to go through. So yes, I can jump on a live. Yes, I can do a presentation. Yes, I can go and socialize if I need to, but I sometimes really avoid those socialization, especially since the lockdowns. And so it's been a little bit more challenging because I had already come out of that cocoon, and then we went into like this, everybody moves into that little circle. And then now trying to be able to come back out and still trying to normalize everything that we were doing. If I have to go someplace on my own and not know somebody, it's like, oh my gosh, how am I going to survive? I always survive, but it's that step. It's that being able to like take that next step of whatever it is that's going on. Being able to, the fear of going into the grocery store, fear of whatever it is that comes with. So like, it could be that we're small, we're like in these small categories or into these larger categories. All depends on what it is that's going on for each person. And for each person, they are all huge, regardless of whether or not we think that they are huge. They are huge. Another one is conquering the fear of flying. So some people have that fear and will not get into a plane. And so like kind of like the extreme of things is like they have that fear and then they overcome that. They're working on overcoming that fear to the point where they actually go and get their own pilot's license, right? So like they're hitting it head on and being able to go and do that. So I know the very first time that I went into a plane, I'm really afraid of heights. And so very first time I went into a plane, it was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this. And so, but I had to, it was part of my job, and I had to be able to go into the plane, and I wasn't really given an option. It was like either, well, I guess technically I did have an option. It was either that or I didn't work. But so I had to do that. It was part of my responsibility as part of my job. And so being able to get into a plane. And so what I discovered is I love being able to like look out the window and that kind of thing. But it still takes that concern. I have a friend who when she actually decided she was going to go on a trip, she went on the trip by herself. She's flown before, so that wasn't part of the issue. It was just the whole anxiety of like all the things going on at the airport and making sure that she can find her way and doing all those things. And so she hit that one head on and was extremely successful in being able to do that. Another one is embracing vulnerability in relationships. So one of the things that will sometimes happen when we are in relationships that have not been very good, or that we've been hurt. And so we just tend to avoid being able to be in any type of relationship. So whether that's a friendship relationship or a work relationship or into like a partner relationship, whatever it is that looks like, is that it is really difficult to be able to overcome some of those fears. And so, but again, being able to just step into them and being able to take that next step is really, really important. And so each one of these examples that I've given you is, like I said, some of them are like pretty extreme, like so flying a plane, like jumping right into flying a plane. That one there is not necessarily something that somebody's going to do, but it really is that whole dance of courage and resilience that we actually have as individuals. We actually get to do that. as part of that. And so one of the things that, and one of the other things, like in terms of like fear, is remembering that fear is definitely a double-edged sword. And so fear, so when we are afraid of something, so there's fight, flight, and freeze. And now there's another one, and I can't remember what it is because that one's newer to me. And so, but it's like that fight, flight, and freeze. And we just kind of get stuck in that situation, or stuck in that moment. And so it is part of our survival mechanism. So like, it's not something that is new for any of us. It is something that is just instinctually part of our survival. And but at the same time, it's also that barrier for us to be able to grow and change. And so the next point that I wanted to be able to make is facing and transforming fear. So we actually talked about some of the things that we've done, or that we could have done, or that we are doing in terms of like how we actually overcome that fear. But how do we actually get through some of those things that are fearful? And so like, so I'm going to actually go through some techniques. And so there's several of them. So I'm going to go through and read them. And so there's different categories. So within the different categories, I think there's 2 points in under each category. So there could be other ones, but there's 2 points under each category. So the first category is introspection. So like that, looking within. So being able to journal. So journaling is huge in terms of introspection. And if we can actually get through and get into the nitty-gritty of what it is that's going on, then it makes a huge difference. And I just broke my elastic. So it just really helps us to be able to kind of break through that piece of things. Another one is mindfulness meditation. We've talked about that this week as well, is that whole practice of being able to just kind of sit in the now. So being able to, using mindfulness to be able to sit in the fear, and observing whatever emotions come up without judgment. And that is so hard to do because our little hamster wheel brain just decides that it's going to go off and have its own way with our brain. And so that it's just really important for us to be able to continuously bring ourselves back to the here and the now, and have that make a huge difference. And so then we move into the next category, which the next category is exposure therapy. So that one there is gradual exposure. So gradual exposure is when we actually do things a little bit at a time. So like when we're afraid of something, and so like, say for example, we are afraid of, so we have generalized anxiety disorder, and or generalized anxiety, not necessarily even a disorder, but then we go into the fear of whatever it is that's going on, and we can't even get to the grocery store. So then the steps are being able to start off with breaking it down to, we start off with just going for a ride in the car with somebody who's actually going to go in and get the groceries, but we're going to stay in the car. And then the next step would be, okay, well, I'm going to go with somebody into the grocery store, and I may only stop and grab a couple of things while the other person goes off and continues, and then I go back out to the car. And then being able to like go through and pick up the groceries, and then go back out to the car while the other person still goes out and pays. And then the next step is that you go right through to the process of paying. Then you go right through to the process of going in by yourself and only grabbing a couple of things and making your way to the cash, and then coming back out again with the person sitting out in the car. So like, there's lots of different ways of being able to do that gradual exposure. And again, depending on what it is, that is something that is really important for us to be able to do. So another, in terms of being able to do exposure therapy, there's also virtual reality exposure. So that one there is where we actually mindfully, so we actually go through a meditation where the meditation is designed specifically to be able to take us and walk us through all the steps that we need to take so that we can actually overcome that part of the fear. And these things take time. So it's not like it's going to happen tomorrow. And so like, especially when we're doing exposure therapy, it's not a one and done. It's not it's going to happen tomorrow. And it's not going to be it's not necessarily going to be successful each and every time either. It's just being able to take it to that next step, feeling the feelings and bringing back. So like this one would be really good to be able to bring back into our mindfulness of being able to, like, when we get back into the car, being able to like focus on our breath, focus on our emotions. What is it that's going on? Allow the tears to flow if we need to, whatever it is that's going on that way. Another one is, so when we actually go into cognitive behavioral therapy, so CBT, and so cognitive restructuring is the technique that actually helps you recognize the negative thoughts. And so earlier this week, I actually talked about the one program that I do offer. That's a 6-week program that takes you step by step in the whole cognitive behavioral part of things, and being able to help you get through that process. But it really is about being able to recognize the negative thoughts that keep us spiraling. Another one is desensitization. So that one there is where we just slowly work on detaching our emotional response to whatever it is that's going on, and working through those emotions. So again, this can work hand in hand with the exposure therapy we're actually going in, but then being able to like replacing those. So when those fears come in and when those emotions come in and we get back into the car, we then work through like the breathing, the techniques, whatever it is that is going to work for us to be able to get there into that step. And so the next category is physical activity. So yoga and breathing exercises. And there's lots of different ways of being able to do this. So the yoga that we practice with my groups is Yoga Nidra, which is a mindful exercise. So like that's one of the things, is just being able to bring that in. And then the other one is adventure sports. So being able to like just kind of jumping in and diving in, those people who are like diving off the high boards and whatever. And so for some people, those adventurous sports, the skydiving, those kinds of things, teach us to be able to face fear with that rush. With a rush of adrenaline and a zest for life. So like those are other ways of being able to have that. And then the next one is seeking therapy and support groups. So there's professional therapy where you can actually go through and conduct on working on confronting those fears. And there's lots of different professionals that are able to help guide you. And then there's also support groups. So sharing and listening to similar experiences. And Soulful Life Hacks is definitely one of those things, one of the groups that I strongly recommend, that my clients strongly recommend as well, of being able to just have that support to be able to get through and whatever it is that we have going on. And so Soulful Life Hacks right now is open. So if you are interested in joining, then now is definitely a good time to be able to get in. But yeah, so like that's kind of where those are. And so we can actually use fear as a motivator instead of having it so that we are going to not be there and not participate and not do all those different things. Is that because when we use fear, we are stepping into that unknown. We don't really know where it is that we're going. And sometimes the fear is because we've already been there. But the experience today is not the same as the experience that it was tomorrow. And so with that, I mean, yesterday. And so that is always really, really important. And remembering that the fear of tomorrow isn't necessarily going to be the same as today or yesterday. It's just being able to just use that as our motivator and being able to step into that. And so we have lots of ways of being able to step in and take action when it comes to fear. So one of the things that I am going to introduce you to is a fear setting exercise, which is inspired on Tim Ferriss. So if you're interested, it actually helps you map out your fears and your strategies to confront them. And it helps you create a fear map. So hopefully that helps. And if you have any questions or if that's something that you're interested in, please reach out and I will chat with all of you guys later. Bye for now.